Teens under pressure like never before.
Nobody hears you because everybody's struggling.
Mental health is the existential challenge of our time.
Staggering new statistics shining a light on a troubling trend.
Teen girls are experiencing record high levels of violence, sadness, and suicide risk.
The mental health crisis is an epidemic.
High schoolers today have so much more pressure.
Growing concerns over social media.
We all get FOMO.
What lifelines can we provide?
Schools are on the front lines of this crisis.
It's time to adapt. Teens under pressure. Mental health and social media.
Young people are in crisis. That is the finding of a troubling new CDC report on mental health. But what is it that's behind this trend? I'm Savannah Sellers, and over the next 30 minutes, we'll look at the causes of this mental health challenge, including the role social media is playing, and also, importantly, what can be done about it. First, though, let's dig into those trends. They show in 2021, 42% of high schoolers felt persistently sad or hopeless. That's up 14% from 2011. 29% experienced poor mental health, and 22% of students seriously considered attempting suicide. Then there are the female students, specifically, who are faring worse. 57% of teen girls experience persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness. That is a jump of 21% in just the last decade. But behind all of these numbers, there are real teens. I recently sat down with a group of high schoolers in Fairfax, Virginia, because we wanted them to help lead this conversation, to take us beyond just these disturbing statistics. I started by asking if they are among those who have felt sad or hopeless.
Have you all, I guess, if you have, raise your hand, experienced that?
Absolutely.
And would you say all your friends have?
For the most part, yeah.
Have any of you ever been speaking with a friend and thought, I got to tell somebody else about what I just heard about how they're doing?
Yeah, I have at one point.
Wow.
It was a friend of mine. For a while, he was having suicidal ideations. I brought it up with the counselor and his parents. And honestly, one of the main things that I found was he didn't really respond well to emotions. He kind of had cut them off from himself. It's just I think that's our root of the problem, is that a lot of people try to cut off their emotions.
I think it's the little things that matter, like the simple little, like, hey, how you doing? Or, like, you know, if you see your friend in the hallway, like, dap them up and just say what's up, you know, just go to class and stuff like that. Like, I think those little things, they can really go a long way in terms of how someone feels during that day.
Sometimes with the telling part, you have to be able to live with the fact that that person might not be your friend from that point going, but you still might have saved their life, or you still might have made them happier. It's also like, who do I tell?
Yeah.
Who can you go to? Because obviously we have like counselors and social workers at school and stuff, but it's like, can I really tell them? Like, what are they really gonna do about that? So there's also an issue of who are some trusted adults that I feel could like actually help the situation.
Exactly, yeah, and on that note of like, who do I go to? It's also, what will they do successfully? Like, I've had that fear of like, okay, I know I need to tell a trusted adult, but will they actually make the situation better, or will it go even worse?
How many of you, do you all know someone who has confided in you that they were having suicidal thoughts?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Every single one of you. Why do you think it is that we're all having such a hard time?
Part of me feels like we see what's going around in the world. We see what's going on within society. We can turn on the news and hear about a death, an accident, a murder, things like that. And we've almost become numb to it.
I just think technology has done a lot of great things for us, but it also has just completely overwhelmed us with so much of the bad news. So
definitely. So it sounds like what I'm hearing right now is current events totally impact you. Yeah. Is that right? Like, you feel the stress of what is going on in the world that's negative.
I don't even watch the news anymore, but I hear it all around me. Everybody, like, one person will say something and everybody will hear about it.
I think a really sad example of this, it was in my first period class maybe a week or two ago. There was some doors slamming towards down the hall, and it was very, very loud. Like, they were slamming them hard. And some people in my class were wondering, are those gunshots? Like, should we lock the door? It's just become so, even though it's such a small, tiny chance, it's still high enough that we are fearful that, oh crap, that can happen to us, because it can happen to us. It's not like we're immune to all of this.
I have a show, an NBC News show on Snapchat, and I asked those viewers to tell me, what are some things that you'd want to ask officials in a mental health capacity. The overwhelming response that I heard about was the anxiety that people are feeling about school shootings.
Crazy how like lockdown drills and stuff like that, like it's obviously, to stay safe is nice, but even having to worry about that is crazy.
And you do worry about it?
Yeah, I feel like everyone does, and at this point, unfortunately, should. There's always that possibility in the back of your mind because you spend more time at school a day than you do at home.
What impact does social media have on you all? I think, as you pointed out already, there's a lot of good technology, but is this a factor in your negative thoughts and negative feelings?
During the pandemic, everyone was all on social media, like, oh, today I'm doing this, I'm baking today, I'm doing my Chloe Ting workouts, or whatever the case may be. And it was easy to just see all the great things that other people were doing and be like, oh, maybe I should be doing that, or I'm not doing enough.
So that comparison trap.
Yeah.
Negative.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like we all kind of get on social media for that kind of idea of escapism, and then it kind of just goes sideways in the sense where it can kind of become a trap of like, oh, I saw this video of somebody who's like working on their applications right now. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. Why am I on TikTok? Things like that. It just kind of becomes a constant battle of like the good and the bad, and every day somehow they're outweighing each other.
I think people also get really, really comfortable in hatred. They get really comfortable in that negative view on social media. Like you're sitting there, you're scrolling, and you're feeling unproductive, lazy, that you can't do anything right, that something's wrong with you just because everybody on social media has their lives together or is projecting that. And you're sitting there and you can't get off your phone. You're like frozen to it.
Could you each just kind of...
Now, teens may be under pressure, but many schools are too under-resourced to tackle this complicated challenge. That's why the Department of Education says it's providing $188 million to help fund more mental health resources in districts that need it most. I spoke to Education Secretary Miguel Cardona and Surgeon General Vivek Murthy about what Murthy calls the existential crisis of our time.
Youth mental health is a full-blown crisis in our country right now, and the numbers tell us such. But the truth is, the numbers have been telling us this for years. This situation has been getting worse. And what we have to do right now is make sure that, number one, kids who need help can get it. Number two, we've got to invest in prevention. We've got to stop this at the root. And there are many factors that are contributing to the mental health crisis. And finally, we've got to address the shame and stigma that still surround mental health. Too many kids are feeling inhibited about coming forward and asking for help because they feel like something's wrong with them if they're struggling with their mental health and that it's their fault. And we've got to change that.
What specifically is happening to our girls? Why is it worse for them?
We see record levels of loneliness, among kids in general, including among young girls, and that increases the risk for depression, for anxiety. But what we're also seeing is the experience of technology, of social media in particular, has not been healthy or positive for many people, and this is especially true for young girls, for whom their sense of self, their confidence in their own body, is adversely affected often by their participation in social media.
It's important also to realize that high schoolers today have so much more pressure to do well, to get good grades. That everything is almost like a competition now in high school. So we have to recognize that they're under a lot more stress, and we have to recognize that when thinking about mental health planning.
You've mentioned a couple times now social media. I don't think we can have this conversation without diving in a little bit on that. And this also came recently that Senator Hawley just announced that he's introducing legislation where he wants to make the minimum age 16 across the board. Is that something either of you are in support of?
Well, I think I'm really glad that we're having this conversation about how to make social media safer for our kids. I do think that the age limit is a problem. I do think 13 is too young for kids to be using social media in its current form. Because look, at the age of 13, in early adolescence, your brain is still developing. You're developing your sense of self, you're building your self-esteem, you're building your relationships, and all of that makes for a very sensitive time when you're young. Right now, most of the products in my home had to meet some sort of safety standard in order to be sold, right, to make sure that they were safe for consumers. Where are those safety standards for social media, especially given how often our kids are using it and how ubiquitous it is? But finally, also, we've got to demand transparency from social media companies when it comes to the data that they are collecting on the impact of social media on the mental health of young people.
I do believe that 13 open access to social media is too young. It reminds me a little bit about my generation, you know, Joe Camel targeting cigarettes toward children, or now we're seeing vape products being sold to children, targeting children. The same is true with social media. They target vulnerable children, and they're preying on them.
I'm happy you invoked tobacco because I think it's an interesting comparison. Of course, what's on a box of cigarettes? A Surgeon General's warning. Do you think that social media needs to come with some type of warning? And would you go a step further than you already have in trying to enforce what you see as harm there?
Well, I think we have to go beyond warnings. I think the data has been telling us more and more clearly that there are significant numbers of kids who are harmed by their use of social media. I think what we need are safety standards and requirements around data transparency, and those actually have to be enforced. We need age-based regulations that are also need to be enforced. But I also think that parents, look, we need to create spaces in a child's life that are free of social media. That could be the dinner table, it could be around bedtime, it could be time when they're with family or friends in person. That time is really important. We've got to protect it.
That's a great point, which makes me want to ask, you say that needs to be enforced, that age. Does that mean that you want to see legislation around what age kids are, at least by the apps, supposed to be on them?
Well, I do think this is a place where the government has to act, because the companies on their own are not going to set the right age limit and enforce them, because they aren't doing it right now. And social media has been around for years, so we can't wait any longer for the system to self-correct. I will tell you that the number one question I get from parents when I travel around the country when we talk about mental health is about social media. Parents ask me, is social media hurting my children? And the sad answer is, I think for many children, the answer is yes.
Schools are notoriously underfunded, teachers underpaid, and we don't have enough of them as it is. Right now, is too much being asked of teachers in classrooms?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Teachers get into the profession naturally because they care about kids. They want to help. And I think we've asked too much of our teachers. And it's not fair. And we must provide them the support, because if we provide them the support, our students will be better. We need to make sure that teachers have support in their schools, enough social workers, school counselors. You know, the ratio in this country in some places is 500 students to one counselor. So when we talk about addressing mental health, are we serious? With a 500 to 1 ratio, are we serious about helping students address what needs they have? So it ends up happening is the classroom teacher is addressing a lot of this. That's why I'm proud of the money that we put here, $188 million to really support it.
We teamed up with Teen Vogue for this special to help reach those most impacted by this issue. I wrote an op-ed for them that you can find on their website, and Teen Vogue features reporter Fortessa Latifi gave us some tips on how to focus on the good when spending time on social media.
The TikTok algorithm is so eerily good at sending you content that relates to your life. I think that the critical thing about social media with young people is that you need to take what's good for you from it and making community with people that you might not have found otherwise. You're seeing people present their identities without this level of sheen that we used to have on social media. And so when that's presented to you, it can help you realize things about yourself. To have a positive relationship with social media, it's really important to find your little corner of it, because it is so vast. And if you find the space where people like you are talking about things that you want to talk about, it can be really helpful. I would also say it's really important to establish boundaries. You don't want to be scrolling on TikTok or Instagram all day long. Even with authentic influencers, it is still just a highlight reel. People are showing you what they want to show you. And so you have to remember that your actual life cannot be compared to people's social media feeds. When you're young and you're having mental health struggles, it can feel like you're alone. And for Gen Z, they can just go online and see that they're not. And I think that's really powerful.
NBC News contacted social media companies for their response, including TikTok, Meta, and Snap. Up next, expert advice on how to reach out